Oh, hey, welcome back to Bread Therapy. My name's Daniel. I'm a professional therapist and hobby baker. And in this session, we're making a Christmassy spiced fruit sourdough loaf, talking about nonviolent communication. Now, when I say violent communication or nonviolent communication, what comes to your mind? Imagine a scenario where you see your significant other or maybe your teenager on their phone. Or maybe they see you on your phone, and whoever it is says, "You're always on that dang phone. It's like you're addicted. It's not healthy, and you need to change. I just wish you'd be more present with me." How would you feel hearing that? How do you think you or someone else might respond to that? It could be true. You or they are using their cell phone frequently, and maybe perhaps even to an unhealthy level, that it's becoming compulsive to pull out a phone when bored. There are numerous studies that show phone behaviors are getting progressively less healthy for mental, emotional, and relational health. But do you think you would change hearing a message like that? Or would you respond with, "No, I'm not, I'm just checking a message," or an email? Marshall Rosenberg discusses the idea of nonviolent communication as communication that brings about understanding and compassion and doesn't invoke defensiveness. So violent communication, then, is communication that brings about defensiveness, shame, or hurt or harm. The framework for nonviolent communication is helpful, I think, in all relationships, personal and professional. But I think especially family relationships with your significant other or your kids, especially teens, just have a greater likelihood of turning south and turning into people getting defensive, leading to some type of negative cycle or dynamic, kind of like we talked about in the last video. The nonviolent communication framework is broken down into 4 parts. The concrete actions we observe that affect our well-being, how we feel in relation to what we observe, the needs, values, desires, etc. that create our feelings, and the concrete actions we request in order to enrich our lives. So to break this down, the concrete actions we observe that affect our well-being. In this aspect, we want to especially focus on making observations rather than evaluations in our statements. In our example from before, saying "you're like addicted to your phone" is an evaluation. I'm making a judgment. Something like "you're so disorganized and messy" is an evaluation. "She complains too much" is an evaluation. A concrete observation might be something like "I have asked 3 times for you to pick up your dirty socks from under the coffee table." Or "the last 4 times she has called, she has talked about her own relationship problems." We have to be concrete and factual as possible, because when we evaluate others, they may have an instinct to fight against that evaluation or disagree with it. But it can be more difficult to disagree with something concrete and factual. How we feel in relation to what we observe includes distinguishing true feelings versus thoughts. We may often hear something along the lines of, "I feel like she's being irresponsible," or "I feel like that wasn't fair." These are thoughts more than feelings. The needs, values, desires, etc. that create our feelings may be the most challenging aspect of this book or this framework. Rosenberg says that things others do may be a stimulus for our feelings, but not the cause. We want to take responsibility for our own feelings. And the cause of our feelings is more based on what things we value, need, or desire that maybe isn't being met, but it's our values, needs, or desires. A helpful practice to taking responsibility for our own feelings and the needs or values that may produce them can be connected through our language with something like "I feel ... because I ... A basic example he gives in the book is, "Mommy feels disappointed when you didn't finish your food because I want you to grow up strong and healthy," rather than something like, "It makes Mommy sad when you don't eat all your food." This puts the responsibility for the feeling on the child to then make Mommy happy by eating the food. Others, especially our kids, do not have the power to make us feel something because they come from our own unmet needs, desires, or values. Someone saying, "You never understand me," is really communicating a need to be understood that is not being met. Concrete actions we request to enrich our lives then should come with positive language. Requesting for ways a need can be met is easier to respond to than requesting for something you don't want. It's also a more connecting request because it lets the other see what your needs are. Requests that sound like demands are also less likely to be responded to. So putting this all together, let's revisit our initial scenario. You're always on that dang phone. It's like you're addicted. It's not healthy and you need to change. I just wish you'd be more present. A concrete observation, feeling, unmet need, and request to change this statement to nonviolent communication may look something like this. You've looked at your phone the last 3 times we were eating together at the table. I feel disappointed because I enjoy sharing our days with each other over a meal, and I value connecting with you. Can we make time to talk about our days while we eat? It may often feel clunky at first, or maybe even make this statement longer, but it is more concise when we can communicate nonviolently. Rosenberg tells the story of a man who wanted to get this right. So he had these 4 parts of the framework written down on a note card that he carried with him for a time so he could pause and choose his words more carefully when he needed to. Over time, he needed the note card less frequently, but something like that may be worth it as you attempt to change the way you communicate. I'll put a link to his book in the description, and I would definitely recommend grabbing a copy. Thanks for watching. See you next time.